Hi, welcome to Expert Talks at. This is the interview series with thought leaders in the analytics, AI, and transformation space. My name is Mahadevann Iyerr, Mahaa for short. I'm your host for today. I'm the co-founder and CEO, which is the managed marketplace for on-demand analytics. Our guest for today is Nitin Srivastava. Nitin is the data and analytics leader at Advanced Auto Parts, which is one of the leading automotive aftermarket parts provider in USA and Canada. Prior to Advanced Auto Parts, Nitin has held analytics leadership role at UnitedHealth and Wells Fargo. Nitin is also one of the earliest uh, embracers, if you will, of data warehousing and business intelligence at the very start of his career. And so he's almost had 22 to 23 years of relationship with data and analytics, initially in business intelligence as a format, and now obviously into providing analytics and AI. So Nitin, it's a pleasure having you on Expert Talks. Thank you for making time and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks, Maha.
So Nitin, I was going through your LinkedIn profile, and I see that obviously you're an engineer and you've been in the business intelligence space. But one of the things that caught my attention is also the fact that you're a master's of psychology and that to clinical psychology, right? So just wanted to understand, why did you do that? Was there a reason for you to do that? And do you see any impact of that particular education or learning that you had in the way you're going about your role?
Yeah, I would say it's very, very important for all of us to understand the human psychology, right? Like in any of the businesses, what we perform, I think it's all for the people, right? That's the fundamental thing. Like whether you are selling an auto part or you are selling an insurance or you are basically selling a loan, at the end of the day, you are dealing with people. And while I was starting my career into the data warehousing field, I realized that my heart always lies to know more about the business domain. And that's why I started my career more as a data modeler than the ETL or the reporting developer. So I thought that it is good to learn the nitty gritties of the human psychology, and that will help me to become a better leader, right? Because one of the very important pillars of any of the organization is about your team and people, right? That's number one. And the second is like you are dealing with the your customers. They are also human beings. So that actually really intrigued me to get into the psychology of the human and understand how they behave, because based on their behavioral patterns, you can actually help your businesses grow. So that was the intent.
Oh, nice, very nice. So, moving on, I wanted to understand about, given your experience of, having led analytics now for such a long time, what do you think are some of the critical success factors for analytics to succeed? Because we often hear that, 50 to 60 or 70% of analytics projects or initiatives generally don't deliver to business expectations, right? So,
Correct.
given that background, what are some of the critical factors you think? And even within that, what do you see is the role or importance of data scientists having great domain knowledge or situational awareness?
Yeah, I think you rightly said, like most of the analytics project fail because we are really not able to quantify the ROI, right? And also the timely manner that when exactly you are going to get your returns back on the investment you are making. So I think that's the number one thing which we really need to focus upon before we begin our journey onto any of the analytics projects, right? So one of the tools which a lot of people use, and personally I also use, is basically the impact versus effort matrix, right? Like if you envision like you have your efforts on your x-axis and impact on your y-axis, right? And if you say low, medium, high on both the x and y axis, you can create that 9-box grid, right? And basically the lower three boxes, which is basically your low efforts and low impact, or medium efforts and low impact, I think those are the ones which you can clearly eliminate, right? And that's how like I try to put what are the KPIs or what are the objectives which is really going to give me the value, right? The best one will be, I would say, the low efforts and high impact. Those are basically that's your sweet spot, right? That's a low hanging fruit which you should clearly call out and say, this is, I need to make an investment, because early success will give you a confidence. And then the other one on the right hand side, the topmost box, which is basically high efforts and high impact, those are your big bets, right? Where you need to have a proper strategy to make sure that, yes, you need to make this thing happen. So I think this is the first step, I would say, for any of the analytics project. When you're starting, try to see how quickly you can get your returns back. That's number one. The second thing is that for any kind of analytics project, the key ingredient is data, right? So you need to really understand what are the different sources of data which you are going to use for your that particular analytics which you are going to do. I'll give you an example. Let's say if you are going for a people analytics domain, right? There could be multiple goals and objectives. Example, you want to increase the productivity of the team members. You want to really make sure that team is engaged, or you want to say, I don't want to have high attrition because that will add on to your cost, right? So I think that's something which you need to identify. What are the various kind of data sources you are going to get, right? Some could be your internal data sources. Example, let's say you are on a workday tool, your organization is going for that, then probably all the workday feeds you need to get. But there are many other things. Think about like how your team member is really responding back onto your LinkedIn profile. Nobody will think about it, right? You will see there's a pattern. When people are looking out for a job, they become very active, super active on LinkedIn. You'll start seeing them, they're posting a lot of stuff, they're appreciating others, they are connecting many people. I think some of these things are very, very important to consider. So what I'm trying to say, not only just the internal data sources, but we need to keep in our mind what are those external data sources which should be considered to have the better insights and the predictability. So that's the number two. But while you're getting the data, another important piece is the quality of the data, especially when you're getting the semi-structured data, right? Like from the external sources. One important thing is that you need to have a very robust data quality thing. Otherwise, it's like a garbage in, garbage out, right? So that's your second thing, that you need to identify your data sources, whether it's internal or external. You need to check the completeness of the data, the quality of the data, and are you covering all the data sources? So that's number two step, right? And then the third, the most important thing which I feel is the team. You need to have a very, very balanced team of data engineers as well as analysts and the data scientists. You need all these people. It's not that sometimes people say that, okay, I have a data engineer and I'll get the things done by the same person, right? You have a data analyst and you basically club the role of a business analyst and a data analyst together. I think these are different kind of roles, and we really need to think about it, that how we have to utilize these resources. And that is where also the domain knowledge comes into picture. I'll give you a very simple example, and I did this mistake, right? So it's important for me to call out. When I was hiring the business analyst, I said, okay, I'm good to have any kind of a person having a retail background, right? And that's how we all naturally think, because I was coming from a banking and insurance domain, getting into advanced auto parts. I thought every retail business is the same business, but that's not true, right? And the example I want to give, like, let's say if you go to Walmart, and if you want to buy the chips, you can buy the chips. If it is not there, you can wait for a day, right? Whereas if you want to get a strut of your Toyota Camry 2003 and your car has broke down, you want to get it on the same day. It's a very different way of thinking from the consumer perspective, right? Which we really don't get it. Or I would say you might be selling 1,000 chips from a store from Walmart on a particular day, versus you might be selling just one Toyota Camry strut once in a year, right? So these are the nuances. And if you get a person from a different domain, even within the retail side, right? it's very difficult to understand, because if you are coming up with your assortment strategy, right, your assortment strategy for FMCG products versus auto parts product is very different. So that's where I think your team composition is another important pillar for any kind of a success of your analytics projects.
Excellent. Very nicely articulated. In fact, you answered part of my next question as well. My next question was that you have worked with, Wells Fargo, United Health, and now with Advanced Auto Parts, which are all different in terms of industry. And, I was wanting to understand, how does the nuances different? You actually took within retail itself, couple of, a typical grocery hypermarket and a auto parts retailer, how it is different. So, it would be good to understand from you, how do you look at building capability? So you explained the nuances from an industry perspective, but I also wanted to understand, given that the three companies you worked have would have been possibly at different levels of A, analytics maturity, and B, possibly work culture, and three, open to innovation, experimentation, etc. Right? Uh, so are there any, to be successful as an analytics leader in any company or business that you get into, right? Are there any nuances from that perspective as well? The culture side of it, right? And the current stage of analytics or transformation maturity in the company. So does it play a role? And how does the analytics leader need to look at it and flex and surge oneself to ensure that they're successful?
So I would say, Maha, yeah, there are multiple questions in the same question. So I'll start with my personal journey. I started my career with a services organization 23 years back in Satyam Computers, and I had an opportunity to go through a rigorous training where I was trained on the ETL side of it, and also the reporting and the data modeling. So these were the three aspects where we were trained. And for almost a year, I was working on all these three aspects. And what I realized is that my interest was lying more onto the data modeling. Reason being, it was closer to business, and I felt that if you do not really understand the business problem clearly, then you cannot do the justice for any kind of analytics projects, right? So that was my intent, and that's how I started developing myself as a data modeler. For almost a decade, I played a data modeler role that then moved into data architect. So what I'm trying to say is that I was building my skill or a depth in one area, while I was also understanding the nuances of the ETL side of it, the reporting side of it. I was interacting with the business analyst, interacting with the end users and the consumers. So technically, this data modeling role is sitting in the center, which is basically having a connect with almost all different kind of roles. So this is how I was building myself, so that I become a complete leader, right, from an end-to-end perspective. So almost a decade, I think it was more into the industry was more into the business intelligence, right? We were working on to those canned reports, to moving on to those smart dashboards, where we were putting some kind of a alert mechanism, and then the report started going back to the end users. They were published as in the form of PDFs. So from there the journey was happening, and when I joined Wells Fargo, right, that was the time I was switching from the services organization to any kind of a global capability center in India. And it was very different thing, right, because one thing is the work culture changes drastically. From a services company to a captives, it is very, very different. You are now bounded with that one particular domain. You need to really focus. You need to go into the detail of the domain. I was part of the consumer lending side of it, which was more onto the loans and other stuff, right? So that is where I realized in banking industry, the first and the foremost thing is that from the compliance perspective, I think a lot of things we were doing from a compliance point of view, right? So most of your insights were coming from there. And at the same point of time, we were also thinking about that how can we predict which customer is going to miss on their EMIs, right? So those kind of things, like how can we go back and help our customers? So those kind of the prediction models we started building in. And that is the time when my engineering started helping me, because I did my specialization in AI back in 23 years back, right? So which I was not using. So I learned the supervised learning techniques, unsupervised. But the kind of computers we had, you cannot train the data at that time. It used to take days, not hours, to train any kind of a data set. So I think that was the time when I was there in the Wells Fargo. We started working on some of those kind of initiatives, and we started using that knowledge and we started building it, because till that point of time it was all theoretical, right? And when we started on different kind of supervised learning techniques, especially I'll give you one example which was very interesting, and it came out as a real business problem, that we used to have a team of more than 50 people who were supporting different applications. This is a production support team, right? And which is basically a 24 by 7. And and mostly on the weekends or even on the weekdays, sometime it happens application has an issue, right? We had more than 200 plus applications. So imagine if application A has an issue, and on that day on a roster we have a person sitting who does not have the knowledge on that application A. This person will pick up the phone and call another person and say, can you help me out? So it was a very tedious task to estimate which application will go wrong when there will be a kind of a issue coming in an application. So at least we thought as a team that can we do something differently, right? So what we did is that we started reading all the logs. We went for a kind of a AI solution, or I would say the analytic solution, where we started predicting which application will go wrong or where exactly things will go wrong. I'll give you another example within that. That in a particular week, on a particular day, there was like we used to get a very heavy file, right? And every time there was a table space issue, and then we need to go back and increase the table space so that we can run our ETL jobs. So such kind of patterns we started recognizing. So we started preempting certain things. We started working on certain things with the DBS so that we can prevent such kind of issues. And at the same point of time, we also started predicting which application will fail at what point of time. This helped us in building the entire roster for that particular week and for a month, right? So that's how, like, the job was same, but we became more efficient, we became more smarter, right? And our productivity increased, our team member engagement increased. And at the same point of time, the same production support team was not doing the routine mundane job. They were doing some exciting stuff. They were learning the AI sitting in the production support team, because that was a big problem. People used to say, I want to get into the development team to learn more. But that created a very different vibe, that you can create opportunities anywhere. So that's how, like, I would say, like, this is an example which I have given from a Wells Fargo perspective. But I think in the insurance side also, like, I've done multiple things. Even here in advanced auto parts, we are exploring the next levels, right? So, like, I would say in advance, we are thinking that it's a very different industry, as I said, right? Retail. And we have our e-commerce site. We sell a lot of products to our e-commerce channel. It happens like, if you want to buy a product, first you go to our website and see if the product is available, and then you can visit a store and buy. So technically, the first point of contact is through our website, right? And one of the big business problem we had over here is that we have hundreds and thousands of vendors who are basically selling products to us. And the product which they are selling, they also give us the images for that. And we have a bunch of team members sitting and going through the quality of the images. Are there watermarks? They will accept or reject, right? But since it's a manual work, a lot of time it happens that you are not able to really do the justice. And some of the watermark images might be going into your e-commerce website. And if that happens, if you search that particular product on Google, you will not be able to find it. The reason is that Google will not allow it because it has a watermark or it has a resolution issue, right? So basically, it's a loss of sales for the company. So we have built our image analytics solution, which actually can scan through all the images and actually say which is the right image which can go to the e-commerce site and which cannot. So these are the kind of automations which we are doing And I just, in the interest of time, just told you about one case, but there are multiple things which we are basically investing into the AI side of it. So that's how I would say that I have groomed myself coming from a pure data warehousing background to now getting into the real analytics and solving some of these business problems.
Nice, very nice. And those examples are very, very practical. And I'm sure, I mean, I quite enjoyed listening to that. I'm sure listeners will also take great value out of that. You did give one example of, how you're using visual analytics to really understand the quality of image and then say, when it should be put into the e-commerce site so that it doesn't get rejected and works well with, Google's policies and all that from
Yep.
a search enabling perspective. Um, and now obviously there is, you spoke of an example of visual AI or computer vision that you're using, which is a form of deep learning. Now generative AI is also happening, conversational AI is happening, right?
Yep.
And you like advanced auto parts being automotive aftermarket, say parts and provider and retailer. The business is very different, like already articulated. Are there any more examples of how you're looking to further monetize your data and embrace other AI solutions? Can you talk of one or two more examples possibly? Because a very different industry, it will be very interesting for people.
Right. I think rather than the AI, I would focus on some of the fundamental things which we are focusing upon, right? We started our transformation journey almost 3 years back. So that was the time when we had all those on-prem databases, your data warehouses on Teradata, Oracle, different kind of stuff, right? So the first step which we took is that we said, okay, we'll move away from our old technology stack and get onto the cloud. So I think today we are proud to say that we are completely onto the cloud, and we built our data lake over here, and that's the place from where like most of the data scientists are consuming the raw data, right? So that's the second thing which we are doing. And the third thing I think which is the key for the retail side is the real time data, right? A lot of time you do the batch processing and then do the analytics, which is not really going to help you out. Let's say that if I have to do a kind of a dynamic pricing, right? Like one of my competitors, they'll reduce the price of the battery, and to be into the competition, I should be fast enough to go back and change my prices, or I should not be reacting to the situation, right? I should be more proactive over there to understand what is the trend going on, right? So to make those things happen, we enabled Kafka live streaming. So that is the fundamental thing which we have done, because until unless you have built those kind of pipeline which is basically giving you the live streaming of the data, you can't do the real time analytics, right? At the same point of time, we are also building a very robust data quality and a data governance framework. Because for any kind of analytics and insights, if you don't have the right kind of data and you don't understand the lineage of the data, it's very difficult to do any kind of analytics or bring out any kind of insight. So those are the three, four things, the fundamental things which we have done in last 3 years. And I would say in last 10 to 12 months, this is one of the capability image analytics we have built, and which we are basically now trying to identify multiple use cases, like when we do a delivery to our customers, right? A lot of time they our guys, the delivery boys, they will take some picture of any place, and because that's a mandate, right? And we don't really check whether they have given it to the right person or not, or they have handed it over to not. They will sometimes put the box outside the door, and they will just take a picture of the door and they will submit that thing, right? So there are some of those kind of things where we are putting those image analytics, right, on the real time. Can we really allow the delivery boy to really take that kind of a picture or the quality of the picture? Until unless you have the good quality of the picture and then you submit, then our basically analytics solution is running on online and basically checking it out whether it's the right quality and then taking it in, right? So we are preempting the bad quality images and ensuring that we are delivering it to the right customer, right? So those are the kind of use cases which we are thinking about. Not only that, we are also thinking that how can we build this organization as a data as a product, right? How can we monetize it in a better way? Yeah, one way is that you can have your data lakes and your EDWs and data warehouses you can build. But think about that, if you can build a data mesh out of it, right? Like where you can have your data coming from the OLTP system, and from there itself you can start utilizing it, right? And you start monetizing it. So that's the next step for us. We haven't started our journey on that, but we are first making sure that our foundation is strong, and the next step will be to get into the data mesh and to the data as a product to monetize the data.
Great, very interesting examples. Now, I want to move forward into the thing that seems to be, the buzzword nowadays, which is
Mhm.
ChatGPT, right? So,
Okay.
so obviously OpenAI has become big. Everybody's talking of ChatGPT 3 plus GPT 4, etc. Google Bard is coming in. DALI 2 and Midjourney. So, the whole place is abuzz with this whole thing of, OpenAI or generative AI, if I may, right? Um, and so with this whole generative AI stuff happening, and with also the proliferation of low code, no code type of platforms, right? You're almost getting this thing of this whole concept of citizen developer, citizen analyst, so somebody who doesn't really know coding can actually solve problems and all that, right? In which case, two things become very important. One is obviously the knowledge or defining the problem that one wants to solve, right? Which you covered in your first, which is how do you prioritize. The other is the ability to give prompts. And now we've got a word called prompt engineering for that, right? Um, so, given this particular situation, I wanted to get your thoughts on how will this, generative AI and prompt engineering and, all this technology evolution, how will it impact the current ecosystem of data analytics teams as it exists today? Will it get disrupted? What will become more important? What is likely to be less important?
A very interesting question, and I think this is one of the things which a lot of people are talking about, right? Especially the OpenAI, Chat GPT. Uh, Personally, I have experienced ChatGPT last year in somewhere around the December timeframe, early December. I got introduced to it, and I was really amazed to see the capabilities of ChatGPT 3. Right, uh, I I tried one thing which was very interesting. I said, "Okay, can you write a poem for my 10-year-old kid?" Right, because I was trying to check the creativity side of it, and believe me or not, less than 15 seconds, it produced me a beautiful poem, which was kind of relating to a 10-year-old boy, right? So it is becoming so intelligent that it is able to understand the context, right? And that is something which is very, very interesting and exciting. Uh, yes, a lot of people will say that it is going to take away a lot of the jobs. Uh, well, this has happened many times in last multiple centuries, right? Like if you think about like when the steam engine came, people said, "Oh my God, the jobs are going to go away." And if you see in present world, uh, there are more jobs which have been created, right? Similarly, like in 80s when the calculator came, a lot of mathematic teachers came on the road in United States, and they said they were protesting against the calculator, that we shouldn't be giving it to the kids. But I think fast forward now, and we are facing the similar kind of a disruption, right? But so I completely disagree that the jobs will be going away. In fact, I feel that more interesting jobs are coming on our way, as you rightly said, the prompt engineering. So I think that's a new skill altogether. If you really do not know how to interact with the AI in future, it will be very difficult for you to survive. I'm not just talking about the developers. I'm talking about any person, right? In any kind of a field today. Like if you see, like we have Microsoft 365 Copilot is getting launched, right? uh, Now the kind of the ability it has, that you can give a prompt through your voice and it can create a PowerPoint presentation by considering some of the documents, the Word documents which you have, right? it can extract the information from there, and it can create a good, nice PPT, a 3 slides or 4 slide PPT. But for that, you need to really understand what you really need to write, or how the prompt should be working, right? If you see the chat GPT, in that also you can give examples. You can say, okay, this is my question and this is my answer, right? Or if you can say, okay, this is how I've written a Python code, you can give your piece of code. Then you can ask, okay, can I have a piece of code written as per the above example, right? It can give you in that way. So I think that's a new kind of a skill which developers will be picking up. Take the case of GitHub Copilot, right? It's so interesting to see that people who have embraced GitHub Copilot, they are able to increase their coding capabilities, or I would say the productivity, by 55%, right? That's what the GitHub site claims about it, right? And the 46% of the code can be written by GitHub Copilot, which means that it is going to help us. There, it's your AI is going to be your buddy. It's not going to take away your job, but it is going to help you out to get a bigger picture of the project, rather than just you are just focusing on the code. You really need to be smart enough to understand how to tweak the code, because it's not giving you the complete project, right? It is going to give you a piece of information. If you need to write a function, it can write a function for you. It can write a particular procedure for you, but now you need to stitch it together. Those are the kind of skills which needs to be built, and which will continue to be there, and you will increase your productivity. So which means that it is faster time to market. Today, if a project is taking like a 6 months to 8 months to deliver, probably you can deliver it in a month, right? If I have to draw a parallel from another industry, let's say that from a civil engineering side, right? There was a time it used to take months and years to build a 50-floor building, right? In China, we have seen they built it in I think 18 or 19 days, if I'm not wrong. I've read it somewhere, like in 18 or 19 days, they created the whole modular thing, and in the 57 floors came in no time. So I think it's just going to accelerate the stuff. It's going to speed up the stuff what we are trying to achieve, and with this, I would say the new skills are going to be built, and there will be new kind of jobs which are going to be created, which we are really not aware of. So that's how I see that in a very positive way. On a negative side, I would say, like, should I get onto the GitHub Copilot right now? May be difficult, because my infosec people may not be agreeing, because it's going to read all my code. So those are the kind of things where we have some kind of apprehensions, that until unless we are very sure that can we really be safe, if is it really safe to use the chat GPT kind of a stuff, right? So but there was a point of time a decade back, people were having the similar doubts on cloud, but now I think everyone is getting onto the cloud. I think it's just a journey, it's a matter of time. Things will happen in the open AI space, what they are doing. I think I see it in a very, very positive way, Ma.
No, absolutely. And you made some great points in terms of concerns, like you said, about the people who actually invest in the AI will have a lot more access to data. Like you use
Yep.
ChatGPT, then ChatGPT, being OpenAI now tied up with Microsoft, they will have access to literally anybody who's asking anything of ChatGPT, right?
Yep.
It was the same for Google. I mean, Google, because it knew what people were searching for, and it is like, the default state for search.
Correct.
What are the concerns that people or community or a location is facing? Google, is able to identify that far faster than, any other form of data flowing. Yeah. So yeah, those concerns will be there, but I think, like you said, the reality is world will continue to progress, and and in its wake it will create disruption, some new opportunities, and some existing opportunities which may actually either get redundant or will need to be rebalanced or changed. Nice,
Correct.
very great,
Yep. Yep.
excellent.
Yep.
um, One more question I had is, so there is this whole prompt engineering, context setting, people who have context can solve problems type of stuff, right? um, The other is about this whole thing of future of work, which is coming from do it from wherever you want, whenever you want, on demand, freelancer migration, fractional workforce, all that type of stuff, right? Work from
Yep.
home, work in office, hybrid model. So
Yep.
there's one part which is work whenever you want, for whatever time you want, from wherever you want type of stuff, right? And then there is the AI thing, which is actually saying that yeah, you need to continue to improve your context to be able to really solve that, right?
Yep.
Um, so do you see that somewhere, the future of AI as it emerges and the future of work? Do you see it at some point in time that people are likely to be very comfortable, sitting out of, let's say, a Miami or Rio de Janeiro, and then, working out of there and deciding to work when they want type of stuff? Deciding to work on a freelancer, part freelancer, or fractional basis. Do you see this somewhere work going there more and more fractional, more and more on demand? Is that something that you see? And if so, how can AI play a role in that?
So I would say that it's already happening, Maha, right? Like while we are speaking, there are so many websites where you can go and get the freelance projects over there. So it's not a new concept. It is just that it depends on the nature of the industry. When I was there in a bank or an insurance company, right? So there's so many regulations and rules and compliances which you need to go through, right? So uh, probably those are the industries it is going to be very difficult to outsource to any of the freelancers because of the I would say the concern about the data protection, right? So that's a difficult part. But let's say if you want to build your or revamp your entire website for a bank, right? I don't think you really need to have the person sitting in your office and doing the stuff, right? So that is the part I think which can be outsourced and can be given to somebody else. Or let's say if you really want to uh, define your overall data strategy, right, for next 3 years, you don't need to really hire a person on a full-time basis. Normally what we do, we go and get the consultants. Even today you go to those big five consultant companies, or maybe you hire from any of the services organizations, and we are getting the things done. So it all depends on the nature of the job, what kind of a work, and also it is related to the industry, right? How AI will play a role, what I think is that one of the things is that there are certain platforms where you can already go and see that what is the rating of a developer, right? Is this a 5-star rated person, or if you have the kind of a good reviews which are coming up in future, probably there will be sites which will be giving you the suggestions. The moment you post the stuff, there is an AI which will connect the developer as well as the company, that these are the right people across the globe who can actually help you this. And think about in future, what if people are accepting the cryptocurrencies, you need not even pay them through any other the fiat currency. You are making the transactions through cryptocurrency. A person sitting in a South Africa working for a company based out of Bangalore, Hyderabad, or any other location in India, right? You are getting your job done, you're making your payments done, and you're selecting that person based on the credentials, right? So I think that's where AI will start helping you to connect. And also I think it's going to uh, uh, help in terms of building the domain expertise, right? Like eh, one thing which I feel that from a chat GPT perspective, right? And I heard it from none other than Bill Gates in his recent interview. He was saying that in future they want to have domain specific stuff in the GPT, chat GPT. Right now I think chat GPT 4 they focused on biology, right? So that's why it was able to clear the medical exams. But now they are thinking that can it be more domain specific. Think about that. When I am talking about retail, within retail there is a subdomain called as auto parts, right, which I said is
Right.
very different than the FMCG retail. what if there is a large language model in future coming up, which is very specific to auto parts, and it is sitting on top of our systems where we understand there is a complete security of our data. It can access all our transactional systems and access to our data lake. And it's like a conversational AI, right? My CEO will be asking, okay, can I get to know my sales for today? And can I compare this thing with my last year sales, right? You are just talking to that particular AI or that large language model, and it is giving you the answers. So what it means is that you need not really do that whole 9 yards of doing an ETL, getting it into a cube, and then creating that kind of a data as a product. But maybe in future your computers will be smart enough to go across all the applications, access the data in real time, and give you the output, right? So this is how the nature of work will also change. I'm just telling it out of the
No,
box. I'm thinking, right? It's not that it is written somewhere, but this is there is a possibility like this, right? So that's how I see that the AI is going to play a major role in every person's life, but not just for the data and analytics folks, but I think uh, in every walk of your life, you will be seeing the embedded AI is playing a very important role.
no, I absolutely agree. I mean, you take, for example, marketing, within that you want to create, brochureware, any imagery or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Earlier, the marketing guy would have to say something, the agency would actually figure it out, the account manager would go to their creative person, the creative person would, use his or her creativity. But there was always a lot of, messaging that was lost during this journey. Now, if that marketing guy is actually good at understanding this and is able to prompt,
Yep.
which being the subject matter expert, she or he knows far better, and they are able to use it, then their ability to articulate what they want will be far superior, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, so the way you're articulating, the way you look at this, there's this thing of somebody was asked about, what were you doing before you cutting the tree, and he was saying I was actually sharpening the axe, right? So prompt engineering is actually essentially going to do that. If you are able to improve your prompting skills, if you know where to cut, then the cutting time will be minimized in some sense,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Yep. Yep.
Great, excellent. So Nitin, my last question for you is that, to any new or budding or aspiring data scientist, or anyone who wants to come into the AI space, right? What are the top 2 or 3 things that they should focus in terms of building their capabilities so that they can have a successful career in AI analytics, transformation, etc.
So I would say that the number one thing is that they need to have a passion, right? Because without
Mm.
passion, I think you can't do any job. So that's the fundamental thing. And the second thing I would say, like, you really need to have that uh, kind of a business acumen also, right? It's not a very technical role. A lot of people think that writing Python code is and then you will become a kind of a data scientist, right? It is not really about that. You really need to understand the business side of it, right? Understanding the business side of it. And the second thing is that the where majority of your time goes is the processing of the data, the cleansing of the data, right? You apply so many techniques over there. So one thing is for sure, you need to learn all those supervised learning techniques or and the unsupervised learning technique, because that's the fundamental of it, right? A lot of techniques like regression, classification, you are using it to really understand the data, right? And then probably you will be applying some of those the factor analysis or text analysis, which is like deep learning, to really get the output for it. So some of these things were so number one, business understanding should be there. Second is that you should be able to understand the all the kind of algorithms where to use. It's like you have been given so many arms and ammunition, and you can't use a cannon to kill a person, right? If you have a pistol with you, right? So a lot of time people will make a mistake that, okay, but since I know all the algorithms, I will go directly for a deep learning algorithm, right? Why? I think that's something which is fundamental. We need to understand that if the thing can be solved by a simple Excel sheet, probably use that rather than just because you know that technically how it works. So you will use and utilize any kind of an algorithm. So that's the another thing which needs a person needs to be careful of. The third thing is that mathematics is also important over here, right? You really need to understand the algebra side of it, right? Like how exactly it works, because if you really want to develop certain new algorithms, you need to understand mathematics. But if you really want to use some of the existing ones, right, then you really need not go deep into that. Today, like a lot of people who come and they start venturing into the AI side of it, they are literally using the existing models, right? They will pick up the model, they will enhance on top of it, right? Whereas if you go and see the people who are there in Google or Facebook, Meta, right? These are the people who are PhDs in mathematics, right? So they are writing those new algorithms. So it depends on where you want to be, and there is a space for both kind of people, right? So you need to understand, you really want to come up with a new kind of an algorithm, then your mathematics is something, the base should be there. If you really want to just become a consumer of some of these AI models which are already existing, then you literally don't need to get into that. But one basic thing is that understanding business is very, very important over here. So that's something I would say that is important for any newcomer who's venturing into this field.
Nicely articulated. Yeah. So you're saying passion is obviously important, business acumen and having a sense for that is very important. And
Right.
from a tech capability perspective, you're saying there are two streams, as you put it. One is you have to have sufficient understanding of algorithms to be able to know what should be applied in which context.
Correct.
The situational and application understanding has to be there. And the other thing is, if somebody wants to go deep, then they needs to have the understanding or learning in maths and be able to generate things from first principles perspective, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
okay, great. Very helpful and very interesting conversation, Nitin. Thank you for making time. And you spoke of a lot of examples, including the way about how to look at if somebody is looking out based on outside in perspective through are they more busy on LinkedIn type of stuff, right? Or about the fact that when you are running, how do you respond to a competition who's actually launched a new promo or pricing, right? So you brought in a lot of
Yep.
perspectives. Very interesting and very practical with examples type of insights. Thank you so much for making time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Maha.